Inheritance is a property by which objects of a derived class possess copies of the data members and member functions of the base class. So, derived class is a class which inherits from another class and the base class is the parent class. So, here again every class has its own data members and member functions. Data members are variables like integer, float and so on. Member functions are some function that we want the class to perform. So, when one class inherits from another class, it means it gets the data members and member functions of that class. We have already seen that member functions, all of them have a different copy of the member functions, but when it comes to data members, each class has its own copy. So, inheritance is one class getting the attributes, characteristics, features, functions, members, you can use any of these terms from another class. A class that inherits from another class, a class that gets the features of another class is called the derived class or subclass or child class. And a class which is inherited, a class which gives its features, which gives its characteristics to another class is called the parent class or the base class or the superclass. So, you can use any of these terms in an interchangeable manner, all three have the same meaning. So, why do we give so much of importance to this inheritance relationship among classes? So, obviously we see that it reduces redundancy. Redundancy is nothing but repetition in code. Say two or more classes need to perform the same kind of function, you do not have to rewrite the function again and again. You can simply make one class inherit the features of another class. So, automatically those functions also can be used by the class that is inheriting. So, you do not have to write the same function again, or because it will occupy more space, it takes more effort on the part of the programmer and it is boring to anybody who reads the program also. So, this unwanted repetition of data or coding or program is eliminated because one class can use the functions of another class. Easy maintenance of code, the same thing when you have one function defined only in one place. When you want to make some modifications, it is enough if you change the data only in that particular section. Now, if you are going to write the same function again and again in 2 or 3 classes, wherever you have to make the modification, you have to make it 2 or 3 times. So, the maintenance part also is difficult for the programmer, plus if you are going to leave it unchanged, that will lead to some kind of discrepancy between the coding. So, when the programmer is trying to execute the program, he will meet with unnecessary errors and it will take time for him to rectify those errors. So, the maintenance part of the coding becomes easier because we define the function in one place and other classes make use of that same function through inheritance. It extends the functionality of an existing class. This is just this is a kind of advantage that one class which defines a function possesses. Though that class is performing that one function only, because other classes need that particular function, they simply inherit from this class. So, the usage of this class or the significance of this class becomes more than what it was actually defined for. So, because other classes make use of that similar functionality, this class becomes indispensable to the entire program. Moreover, say you are having one class defining addition and subtraction. You want to perform the calculator function on the whole. So, another class, instead of writing the same function of addition and subtraction again, it can simply add multiplication and division, inherit from the class which is implementing addition and subtraction, and thus it will get the 4 important multiplication functions of a calculator or arithmetic functions of a calculator. So, this is how a class's functionality is extended. A class is having one particular part or one particular subtask of an entire process. Other classes can just add the other tasks and they can inherit from the basic class and they can form a process altogether. So, one class's function, though it is not complete, it can be made complete by other functions just adding their small part to it. You do not have to form the entire process, make it a big problem and then solve it. The problem can be easily solved in subtasks. So, all these advantages are present when we use this inheritance concept. So, what are the points to be remembered when we are programming using this inheritance concept? Constructors are invoked in the order of base to derived classes. See, constructors and destructor functions we have already studied. They are also member functions which perform the operation of initialization and destruction of or freeing of memory space. So, when constructors are present in the superclass in the subclass, there will be a confusion to the compiler about when a constructor is seen of the subclass, whether to invoke the constructor of the subclass or the superclass. So, there is a particular rule to be followed in that. They have to be invoked in the order of base to derived. So, when you are initializing memory, first the base class's data members are initialized, then the subclass. But in the case of destructors, it is in the reverse order. The freeing of memory space is done for the derived classes objects, and then we move over to the parent classes objects. So, these are rules that are already existing, and we have to bear them in mind when we define constructors and destructors and when we create objects and destroy them. No constructors, destructors or base class operators are inherited. So, this is another difference between constructors and other functions. When we inherit from another class, only the data members, variables and the member functions which are defined by the user other than constructors and destructors are inherited by classes. Constructors, destructors and operators are not inherited when we inherit one class from another. There are certain access specifiers of derivation. When we say inheritance and one class inherits from another, all do not have the same meaning. In inheritance, we have the importance of the access specifiers. They only actually determine the type of inheritance between classes. Inheritance can be public, it can be protected or it can be private. We have already seen these access specifiers in general with regards to data members and member functions.